Hey everybody, this is Carlos Ocelot, founder and CEO of G2 Esports, former professional gamer, and wonderful bodybuilder, as you may have known. Of course, you know me for that, pretty sure. And you're watching Dankan's channel. Thorin, my man. Enjoy.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Thorin's Rotations. I've got Amazing here as my co-host because we're doing an LEC episode. Obviously, it's not going that hot for Misfits at the moment, but whatever. Listen,
at least I'm not coaching anymore. It's not my fault. So it's someone
That's true. That is true. Plus, to be fair, like, if anything, when you have been a coach, the one thing everyone has to get good at is how to explain away when the team's doing bad. Like, that's the skills. With that said, though, our guest here, Arailla, which is hard to say, and I'll try not to do it too many times, is an analyst for Astralis. So I know what you're all thinking, like, was this some Yu-Gi-Oh shit? Like, now you've revealed my trap card. Like, no, believe it or not, we're not actually just going to roast Astralis the whole episode. We'll probably just do that in like the next episode with a different guest or something. Right, if we ask about it, we'll ask about something reasonable. And obviously they're not doing awesome, but we brought her here to give us some insights into the rest of the league. So actually, I just want to start here. I haven't done the episodes at all for LEC this split. And obviously, I mean, the weird thing is, it still feels to me like the beginning of the year, but like basically we're already in the third month. So amazing. Like, what is your sense for how it's going this year? Because one of the problems I had is, I know so many people when Worlds was on LAN, in their brain, it's almost like they were like, oh, maybe next year, like, you know, we'll be back on the normal thing with the splits in the studio. Like, what does it feel like now? Because I can tell you from CSGO, where we've had a whole year of online tournaments, like, it does wear on you after a while. Like, in your brain, you want to say, no, it's all the same, it all counts. This is still they're doing their best, you know. But eventually, you're just like, this is like, it's hard to actually care about some of these results if it's like a really crazy one, because you're like, would that really happen? Like, where are you at, Amazing? Like, how are you enjoying the split so far?
I mean, it's obviously entertaining because I like to watch League of Legends simply because it's like obviously the game that I've been working on for the past 10 years, but it feels different because after 1 year of just being on, as you said, you know, on LAN, offline basically, or online, I mean, it just weighs differently on you. You don't really care about the matches anymore. You can kind of see that with a couple of teams, especially when you look at Fnatic, sometimes, you know, acting out in some kind of manner, especially someone like Bwipo, who is a bit of an inter, just once more. And it's like the actions don't have the harsh consequences anymore. And that's like what you can see in the games partially. That like teams that don't care about the games or are lower tier than usual, they usually just like act up and they kind of explode for a couple of games, something like Schalke, for example, or Vitality just popping off because they don't have to care about the results anymore because no one's gonna like look in their faces after they lost and be like, hey, you're fucking bad. It doesn't happen anymore. You know, you're online, you're just away from everyone else. So I don't know, it feels differently than it used to, and it's not the same anymore. It's just not the same.
How have you been finding this? But it doesn't have to be about that angle. But what have you thought so far, Arailla?
To me, since we are really focusing rather on progress and anything, I feel like kind of the same, because especially when you lose, you can't say anything like it would be better on stage. It doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work this way to just try to find new justifications. So for us, it's kind of the same. But also at the same time, seeing how teams last year were, you know, having success in the LEC and then crumbled at World, you can also have some questions like, okay, these rookies are doing great. Yeah, and how will it evolve if ever these teams will qualify to MSI, for example?
Do you think it's better for rookie development to actually be online than be on LAN?
I think so. I think that it helps a lot get out of your comfort zone, and the faster the better to the improvements.
I feel like it's kind of like a mixed bag. Like, I was doing an episode recently where like Dom brought on this guy called Revenge from Immortals, where I don't particularly know him very well, but he's like a friend of Dom's, apparently going back in the past. And I was saying to that guy, like, even though, like, listen, I agree, if you're a pro player and you have skills, you want to get to LAN as soon as you possible, like, get all experience. Like, in fact, you want to go through, in theory, the losses immediately and then get to the good part of your career. But at the same time, the upside is, if you are a player who doesn't have that experience, you've evened the gap up a little bit. Like, I tell you what, there's especially those players, like, I know it doesn't count for G2 because they win anyway, but in theory, those guys don't care about a random best of one in spring online the same way. So, like, you might catch them in the odd game, which is your chance to shine, pop off, like, and you know what, hopefully next year in the next split, then you get to go online and you've at least got something to show for it. But I agree, like, it's like I told, I actually remember, sadly, fatefully, I actually argued about Mac with Mac from Mad Lions about this, where I basically told him, like, you cannot think that a whole team of rookies is just automatically going to be on LAN, and you cannot know that until they're there. And he was trying to argue with me, sort of like, but no, I do, because I know, because he was taking the angle of, like, I know my players. It's like, I mean, you could talk to this amazing. Nobody knows that. Like, you can't know it yourself till you're on that stage, especially when we're talking worlds and stuff. Like, that's great. It's different, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no comparison. Like, I remember my first LANs, and that's like 2012 right now. It's like it's 8 years back at this point, But the online games that I played without any issues, I was like 2.8k elo, and then I go into LAN and play against someone like Saint Vicious at the time. That was my first LAN event, and I go 0-5 against Saint Vicious. Like, it hits differently, and because like the circumstances are different. You see fans screaming for one or the other team. Like, you may not have as many fans, especially at the beginning. People aren't going to hype you up. They're going to cheer more for the enemy team, and it's a completely different feeling. You also like just have to readjust the keyboard. You have to think about your mouse setup. You have to think about how much weight you usually put in the mouse pad. Like, there's so many things that suddenly are interchangeable that like you don't really think about until you suddenly sit in that seat and you're like, oh, I forgot everything that I usually have as a comfort zone, and now it's gone. So what do I do? Well, I have to adapt. And that adaptation is actually what happens multiple times on LANs, especially if we think about tournaments, if we think about worlds, especially, where it's always like a small microcosm that you kind of establish within a tournament. And you have to really be able to adapt. And most rookies, they're good at like playing one style and one style only, but if something else is thrown at them, especially on LAN, when someone prepares like really, really well for you, well, that comfort zone is not there anymore, and you can't go back to that. So.
Right, I thought a fun team to start with, because let's face it, everyone knows like the storyline, everyone claims, so they're like, oh, the LEC is so boring, it's just G2 Fnatic. It's like, listen, I know, to be fair, Fnatic do like to sort of play dead during the split and then get good, but like, they have changed the lineup. And also, I know people are going to think, where's he going to go on this one? Because technically, Nemesis and Rekkles aren't on the team anymore, so they're like trying to do the maths, like fucking that show like numbers back in the day. Like, does he actually hate them now, or does he like, because I know he likes soft mid, but all I'll say is, like, first of all, never been a huge Niski fan. I think everyone knows that, but he's okay. So I don't know, because when I saw this roster, I was like, this isn't bad, actually. Like, this could still be a good team. But I have to say, I had them sort of pegged as like third or fourth. Like, I didn't think they would be second best. Like, I know it's easy to say now because everyone will claim it, but I'm a big fan of Odo Amne. I thought like Rogue would be a banger. That already was a pretty sick team, right? What have you actually thought of Fnatic so far, Arailla? Because like, even though I said like in the past, they've had splits certainly where they started dodgy. Obviously, the last split they were in, they almost didn't make Worlds, but this one feels alarming to me. Where's your confidence level at on what Fnatic's doing? And is there something about the style of play doesn't work? What do you think?
I think that they build their roster pretty well, actually, because they all kind of seem to be on the same page, or at least have pretty similar ideas of how to play the game. And they are not completely there yet. You can see sometimes that the crazy plays that either Bwipo or ErikHillestad are about to go with are not totally synchronized with the rest of the team. But since week one, they have kept going with a style, and it backfires oftenly, and that costs games at times. But also it's something that they are building on, and they are not turning their back at this because it backfires, and they keep believing in it. So I think they will only progress in that direction, and it's something that works well for Chinese team, for example, the over-aggression and over-going in, and it will give them an edge if they can really refine it, I think.
Yeah. What do you think their ceiling lays? Because I feel like with Niski especially now, and obviously the difference between Upset and Rekkles, like, I mean, I don't want to harp on it, but I think it's huge. Like, what do you think their ceiling is? Because I don't see them like recovering the same way that they used to and just like turn it on, suddenly get a good game plan. Because I don't think that the coaching staff is actually established to do that. I don't think Yamato is someone that has historically been really good at establishing like a controlled style where you at some point are going to win best of 5 because you're just a better team and you can answer everything the enemies are doing. And I don't think that Niski is the kind of player, and I don't think Upset is the kind of player, like especially Upset, I think is not the kind of player that is going to be able to be stable in the best of 5. So what do you think is going to be their ceiling?
I'm not sure, actually. I think it could maybe even be a kind of team that relies on certain meta as well, because maybe in summer, seeing how patch goes, maybe in summer even it becomes tank jungle meta, and how about self-made, how does it go for him? And yeah, also as you said, Niski and Upset are really good as is in the league, but yeah, I'm kind of for wait and see kind of mode, because I'm not sure yet, to be honest.
Okay.
What did you mean? I mean, you just said the best of 5 angle amazing, but do you have any more insight? What's the big difference between Upset and Rekkles to you? Like, what's the key difference here?
I mean, first of all, I guess mental stability in terms of like a best of 5 scenario where I think Upset, at least when I played with him, it was mainly the Fnatic series, I guess, that I remember, where he suddenly wanted to go back to comfort picks in order to kind of protect himself, and it kind of hurt us in the pick ban, which makes sense because he was kind of a rookie at the time, and I'm not sure if he has like shown progress in that regard, because when I look at the games that he has played under pressure in the last couple of years, I don't think he ever stepped up as a leader per se. And the way that Rekkles has been is like, not that he's a vocal leader per se, but he's been in emotionally, like in a best of 5 at least, in that very vacuum, he has been emotionally stable and actually like been a rock for a lot of teams like that he's played on, right? In every Fnatic iteration, he has always been someone that like people can rely on to give that 40-minute win no matter what you do. And I don't think Upset has the same quality, and I don't see where they can potentially get like the best of 5 wins against teams that are gonna like just match their aggression in the early game. Because I do think there are multiple teams in the league right now that can match their aggression, actually have better mechanics. For example, G2, I think Roka has better mechanics, honestly, across the board. So I just don't see how they can beat any of those teams, at least in the best of 5 scenario, because of the lack of just stability.
One thing I noticed as well, like I'm usually not someone who goes super deep on the draft, but people mentioned it, so I looked it up, and it's accurate. Like in almost every one of these games, basically the way they draft is like it's just Bwipo last pick. Like he just gets at the very end, they let him pick from like the crazy fun bag that Bwipo carries around with him with all his champions in, and at that point in time, it must just be like a fucking lottery or something. You just whatever comes out, it's Bwipo, isn't it? So he just goes ham. So. That seems like a very weird style to play. Because I have to say, when I saw this team composed, I thought the whole logic was right. Right, Niski's also there not just to work with self-made, but to offset the fact that Whipple's a bit of a maniac in the top lane. That if you bring in Upset, I mean, I know he would think this, the whole team's supposed to be about getting him powered up so he can carry the game. Like, what do you think of this Bwipo approach, though, Arailla? Like,
I think they consider him as a main carry, and and give him the resources for him to be like that. And I'm not sure actually.
Yeah, makes sense.
Do you think the top lane pool should be that wide? Because obviously at the moment it looks like he's playing almost anything. Is it enormous at the moment in top lane?
Happy?
Well, I mean, it definitely complicates the draft in a sense. So that's an edge they got. You never know what people will pick next.
Do you think it's a conscious style that they've chosen to actually like consciously just go for Bwipo, or is this something that they just like came up? What do you think?
I think it could be conscious because he always has had these weird picks in the top lane, and so for this to work in the draft, he needs to be last pick, and so you have to make the rest of the draft more safe, and so it impacts the game as well. So I hope they are conscious of this, because else it wouldn't work at all.
I guess, yeah, dumb question, but yeah.
The only thing is, though, like, I give you an example. When he had that Riven game where obviously he was, like, smurfing on everyone, like, I found some of the Twitter banter for that so weird, because then everyone was just going, the champion's just broken. Just a broken champ. It's like, who else is playing it? What are you talking about? Like, it's not like you play it all the time. It's like, that's one of those things where someone in solo queue just got smashed by Riven and, like, the champion sucks. It's like, mate, it's not like everyone just spams it in top lane now, is it? What's that? Like, that's a specialist pick. Like, it's hard to make those picks work. Like, you have to basically, like, and also you're going to throw the whole game if you fuck it up.
Yeah,
it's pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, he must be dedicating a lot of time to those. I mean, to those special Olympics. I sometimes watch his stream, and when I see him play, like he's really conscious of his efforts within the lane. So he actually pre-plans like the next 2 to 3 minutes actually really clearly. So he knows when he's gonna have the base coming in, his next recall, like how he's gonna beat that matchup. But I don't think it's as sustainable as Fnatic pretends it is right now. Like, I mean, you already talked about it a bit, that. This works for quite a bit, and it can work, but it may not work. Like at some point it can just break down and it can break apart. And I don't know who's gonna take up that mantle in case Bwipo suddenly like has an off week or an off day, whatever it is. And we've seen this in playoffs, and you talked about it too, that like in playoffs he's regularly been like underperforming, especially against the likes of Wunder. And I do think that Ordo Amne and I mean even Broken Blade sometimes has the ability to just pop off, and match him. So I don't know what Fnatic's going to do when that top lane pool is kind of figured out, because you can get a lot of information just from a solo queue.
Sure. That's actually one thing that's weird if people don't know. If you ever go on Bwipo's solo queue, like stream rather, it looks like he is like the most thoughtful, like good teammate.
Yeah.
He's even trying to like talk to himself, like, don't get mad at this guy who's flaming me, who's doing bad. Like, he's probably just having a bad guy. But then what's bizarre is I even said this to him when I'm on shows with him. Then it gets in game, and like I have him on talk shows. He's doing a great job, like explaining everything, even weird picks. He'll explain like why, the logic. Like, well, at 15 minutes, the wave gets interesting here, and I was going to attack. Like, and I'm like, wow, this is great. And then I watched the game. This is what I even said to him. And then I watched the game, right? And I'm not a guy who throws around 24/7 inter and stuff, but I watched the game and I'm like, he's fucking getting. What is that? Holy shit! This guy's griefing. What is this? And then I've actually figured it out though. I've cracked it. I've cracked the code. Okay. Right? If everyone knows, there's one problem Bwipo has on talk shows, which is that Bwipo never actually stops talking. You just have to interrupt him and then say something else and direct. Because he just keeps going. Like, it keeps going. It takes 20. So that's the problem. I bet he does know exactly what he wants to do in the game, but it would take longer than the game to play to explain to his teammates what he's about to. So he just thinks, you know what? Jesus, take the wheel. I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to pray that this Polish guy just knows, like, fucking, magically to teleport into my lane and that the other jungler isn't there. And if he isn't there, I have to say, I'll give Bwipo a bit of credit in this sense. He is sort of like the Western TheShy. Because he also has a mad high ceiling when he hits it. Like, he can be really fucking good when he's on his game. But man alive, that basement is rough. There's some demons in that basement. I know, yeah.
It's underwater, that's for sure. Yeah, no, I can see that. Like, but I don't know. Like, we talked about this now, like about the whole team chemistry, right? Like, yes. I mean, Nisqy is supposed to play around someone. Like, Nisqy is definitely supposed to play around someone. I think they may have really overvalued how strong Upset plus Hilly are going to be together and how they're going to function. Because like when I look at the two, I don't think they have any other option besides playing around Bwipo and hoping that he's going to take the wheel and carry the game. Because like the farming meta obviously means that both junglers are going to kind of be evenly matched, right? I mean, we may see a bit of a change with the new meta coming in, like, or with the changes that we've seen recently. That over time we may see more ganking junglers, but you're going to have Graves, Lilia, Hecarim, that kind of jungle, and you're going to have to face up another jungler that's going to play exactly the same champion. So, they have to play on Bwipo and like upset Hilly. I don't know, like their map movements. I know it's crisp as, for example, Rekkles, Hillestad map movements where Rekkles knew exactly when he had to give up CS. And Nisqy is just not, Nisqy is just different to Nemesis, way different. That he needs someone to play off of. And I don't think they have established that person besides Bwipo, and they need to establish another wheel. It has to happen.
Where do you think Nemesis matches up in the EU mids area?
I didn't expect that.
No. Just look at her face. Like she wants to say something really offensive right now. I can feel it.
Oh no, not at all. I was just trying to list in my head all the mid, okay. And actually, I'm filling out the list because there were a lot of rookies coming in this year. So,
were you following the ERLs much? Like, do you know a lot of the newer people?
I know a lot of them, because I watch LFL a lot. And
okay. Who were the ones you were really hyped for?
Blue, who actually is coming from TCL, because I was in his team when I was in Fenerbahce 2 years ago.
Okay.
And at the time, the guy was still studying because his parents wanted to, so he was in Fenerbahce Academy and was rank 1 on Europe on solo queue at the same time. And so he came in for Summer Split, shared mid lane with Bolulu, and then was kept in the Fenerbahce roster for 2020. And destroyed every other mid in TCL, got every MVP title he could in spring. Summer was rough for Fenerbahce, but he was still 1v9 every game. And so I was really hyped seeing him in the LEC, and I think he's proving me right so far, so I was really happy. Seeing SK in third place, it's really great. The guy is really proactive, really confident about himself. So,
do you think Nemesis is better than Chocolate, for example? Do you think he's better than Malika right now?
Do you mean Nemesis or Nisqy?
Nemesis.
Yeah, okay, just checking.
Yeah, could be, probably. It's hard without seeing them matched up, but I think Van Chocoladia, Van Milica, probably. Even you know him better than me, but I'm still not sold on VTO besides his Zoe, and maybe now
I don't
his
know. I
Arailla.
don't know any. I just know
Yeah,
him
you
from
don't.
what you guys do. So don't worry. But yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Because to me, VTO in LEC was a bit too soon because he was just like 1 year of experience in front. Like he was in LDLC Academy, promoted to LDLC, and then off you go to LEC. And his Zoe was always scary, and that's a big part of what made us win U Masters last year in spring. And yeah, I'm a bit scared because his champion pool doesn't seem to expand that much. Yeah, I still have to see if he actually can get real impact of the game same way on other champions.
By the way, I will say, like, if people don't know basically like the economics of the LEC, as you might have seen by that interview I did with Crownshot, like SK is not a team that's going to pay big money. Like they weren't going for like massive names and stuff. And in fact, if anything, the last few years, the really good players on their team tend to leave and go elsewhere. So when I actually saw their lineup, because I didn't watch the IRLs that much last year, I actually remembered thinking like, this might be crap like this line, but I have to say, I don't know who did the scouting, whether it was Jesus or something, but they've done a fucking dynamite job with the scouting here. Like, this is a really good job. Like, this actually reminds me of the Misfits team last year in that sense, where everyone was flaming it when it was first announced, and then by the end of the spring, everyone's like, this is not a bad lineup actually, because obviously it is based at like all EU teams, like you have to have a good mid, but they've nailed that, and then the other players they brought in all look like they're fitting pretty well. What have you actually thought of SK, Amazing? Because for me, they're already way above the rim of what I expected. I thought they'd be like barely a playoff team,
I mean, I had no idea that Treats was actually going to be a player in Europe, honestly. Like, he didn't seem that great on TSM. And honestly, when you're in that TSM bubble, or like, I mean, not the talent suppression, but I'm talking about like rather the
of course.
the NA bubble, that I think at that point, you're stuck in a position where you're going to play against worse people 24/7 because you're going to be stuck in that 60 ping solo queue. And then you still have to like, keep up your skill. And it rarely happens that you can actually keep it up that way. So him coming back to you and actually performing the way that he did so far, and being a playmaker and understanding like what he has to do at all times is really, really surprising. So maybe he picked up a shit ton of words, that could be, or the NA bubble isn't as bad as I thought it was, and he actually could kind of keep his skill up or actually improve from what he did earlier. So. But he's obviously great. But Jesu, I knew that he was going to be great because this guy, even last year when I saw him in the Misfits Academy, and I guess I watched him a bit more closely when I was still coaching the LEC team, that this guy has an innate ability that I don't think a lot of people have. And it's like, first of all, utmost confidence, but also really paying respect to the game. He's one of the few rookies that really pays respect to trying as hard as possible and really improving upon his game day in and day out. And that gave me confidence when I saw him on the lineup that at least he was going to be good. Then Tings and Blue, Blue especially I had less info about, but Tings, I know that he failed a trial against me back in season 8 when in Schalke, so I kind of had like less expectations for him, but he's also he's just a jungler that does what he's supposed to do. It doesn't go for any fancy plays unless he has to. But usually it's just mechanically sound, does what he has to, and then they get a couple of wins from that. So yeah, I mean, overall, I would say I would have placed them as like 8th or 9th. So it's definitely really weird to see them 3rd.
What would you give us some insight then if you actually were coaching Jesu? Like, what type of player should we expect?
I would say we will see someone that is like, I mean, first of all, he knows every matchup, I think, inside and out from what I've seen so far. That he actually knows how to play certain matchups. He's really vocal about it, despite being a relatively young person, because he's only been playing for like 1.5 years at this point, I think. So I would assume that he's not going to be the Hunt Summoner that's going to like just slow push every 3rd wave and going to dive you with a Strafen, whatever it is. But he's more or less going to be, I mean, kind of the Kobe type. Yeah, just basic Kobe. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. Do you have what thoughts do you have on, you can pick whichever players you feel like. Maybe start with Blue, actually, since you said you watched him in the past on that team. Like, give us some sense, what type of mid laner should he be? And if you could give a comparison, that's great. If you can think of a good name that's like a similar style of play or something.
Because he was playing really differently in VTSL, because he kind of knew he was above the competition. So he would really go for the aggressive solo kills everywhere he could. He wouldn't be scared to pick even Z or something in professional matches. So yeah, I don't know, really proactive, really confident, and looking for plays. like the first one of the first match of LEC, he was playing against Caps. He was playing Silas, and Caps was playing Twisted Fate. And just seeing the amount of time he stole Caps' ultimate just to go roam first on the map and have an impact first. And that's really the kind of player I have in mind every time I see him. It's like, what should I do next to impact the game, and even do some flashy plays if needed, because he really thinks he can pull them out.
To be fair, though, amazing. Like, if anything now for treats, it's all just gravy from here on out from his career. Like, I bet he just, even if he loses the game, he goes on Twitter and someone's like, not a great game, but try again next time. He's like, wow. So not kill myself. Well, that's cool. Yeah, this is a new world. Fucking hell. Like, because that's what people don't know. Like, I've always said this. In fact, I'll give you a quick analogy. If people don't know, because it's hard to keep track of all the people I'm at war with on the internet, but one large group is all Brazilian CSGO fans just from some shit years ago. Don't even worry about it. So anyway, right, believe it or not, this is when I actually really, really understood that you shouldn't ever blame a team for its fans. Like, listen, it's different if you like design the whole culture to be like that, but in general, like, you can have Nutter fans. I'm sure I have Nutter fans that go on Reddit and Twitter and all the rest of it, right? But here's how I know, because one time I was talking to the actual players that were like the most beloved. They were the team that won the majors in CS back in 2016, and they just said to me, dude, they flame us like that if we lose. Like, you have to understand, they tell us to kill ourselves if we lose the game. Yeah. So, like, it's not just you. Like, that's just, that's just hardcore fans who are like that. So, people don't know. Listen, if you're in TSM and you're doing well, yeah, they'll defend you to the end of the earth. They'll be in all the flame wars. It looks like it's awesome to be in TSM. Fucking sucks if you lose a game, though. Like, everyone knows how that subreddit is. Like, they're the most, like, schizophrenic subreddit. I know it's more like multiple personality disorder. They just start like what, like, dude, the worst was Broken Blade. They would be going from like, he's a fucking amazing top lane. I was like, yeah, I agree. And then they'd be like, cut him, he's the whole reason we're losing. And then the next day, like, I always believed in him. Where are all you who were, you know what I mean? They were just so back and forwards. It was crazy. Like, the whiplash of my neck was killing me. It's like, people don't know that pressure, do they? That's why you say to be in that bubble, like, mate, the TSM bubble especially is just something else, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is different. I guess I get kind of the worst of it to a certain extent, like, too, when I was there, because I mean, Thorin probably got it worse. So I guess it's like Thorin, then me, and then, like, I guess the newcomers, especially Spica and Treats last year. But it's like, it's that I don't know what it is. I mean, I will vehemently defend, like, any fan that is like really, really cheering for TSM and trying to make, like, wants to see the best for the players happen.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, I'm really happy. I'm grateful. I'm still grateful because there's so many people that are still following me to this day, just because of it. But the very worst, and I think it's more or less the fair weather fans, that are suddenly just like, hey, I'm gonna support TSM because they're doing well, or I'm gonna shit on them when they're doing badly. Is that they utilize, like, that polarization of the organization to actually just, like, go ham on the players. And I don't know how people can deal with it without, like, honestly being mentally so strong, like that it almost, like, they must have diamond brains to a certain extent, like, not let anything get to them. Because even when I was there, and I know that I'm headstrong as fuck, it got to me. It got to me at certain times.
Sure.
So the only thing I knew how to do is, like, bumping heads with everyone, just being like, shut the fuck up, shut up, you shut up. Like, it's just like going full frontal mode with them. So
sure.
That TSM bubble, it didn't. I mean, Treats was not really heavily hit by it, but I do think that it does really give you like, just a different kind of worldview or view on esports or on further teams, because afterwards you're going to be in La La Land and you don't care anymore, because you're not going to find anything as bad as was there in terms of polarization of the fan base.
By the way, I'll tell everyone a little story that they won't actually know about me and Amazing. In fact, I don't even know properly if Amazing even knows. I think he vaguely just, I maybe referenced it one time or something though. But me and Amazing were actually in the same team for like 1 year, because his first team, which was Team Acer, and it was basically like a German-based team at the time, because that was where the Acer guys actually were, was one that I was working for at the time, right before I went to On Gamers. And then I wasn't actually that huge. Like, I was big in my game, like CS or whatever, but like in other games, like in League of Legends, I was nobody. In fact, I wasn't even working in League of Legends at the time. So that's actually the ridiculous thing. Even though he was in the team that had like Citizen Wayne and stuff, and we sent them to Korea for OGN and all that stuff. The problem is I only like wrote news posts, mate. Like, I never interviewed him, because I can't lie. At the time, like, obviously I thought like CS was the shit and StarCraft. Like, I did just think like, League of Legends, isn't that like fucking Babby's daughter? Yeah. Now, I have to say, I've put a lot of my years of my life into it since then, so maybe the joke's on me on that one. Like, fair enough. Fair enough. I used to just send the rookie news posters to interview people like amazing. Like, go on then, just interview that fucking League of Legends player. We've got to do something for the boss, you know. Because people also don't know though, dude. That was when League of Legends hadn't quite blown up. Like, it had loads of viewers and loads of players, but like as an esport, you were sort of like the third tier if you went to the big event and stuff.
We were nothing. Like, I remember, like, because like, I mean, that was 2012, right? So
yeah,
back at that point, people just didn't. I mean, they watched League of Legends, they were supporting it, but it was basically just like the IEMs and I guess the regional qualifiers. You know, anything below that, for example, regional leagues and that kind of shit didn't exist yet. So we basically qualified for an event. And I believe my first event on YouTube that I played got like 65 views. 65. Like I was in China. I was in China for it, but I get 65 views on YouTube for it. So I guess we'd take that, you know. But that was basically how small the scene was partially at the time, and people didn't care about it besides like the eastern regions, you know. Like, and I guess some North America, Europe was really underdeveloped at the time. So yeah.
Yes. Also, by the way, shout out at that Chinese tournament for putting, I think it was fucking Curse NA in the ground, even though at the time you guys were supposed to be nothing, so you all don't even know about that. There was good teams there. There was IG there. There was a bunch of fucking bangers there.
We beat LGD2 actually. We beat LGD. I beat POL before 2015. I didn't even know, but I beat them, and we got third place in a tournament with IG.
There was some big teams. I think like Incredible Miracle or something was there. There was a bunch of teams, yeah.
WE, Curse NA flew over, and they lost in the first round against us after telling us that this is a free draw. You know,
of course. This was a St. Vicious team, people don't remember. Yeah, exactly.
The group draw is happening, or the draw for the first round is happening, and I see St. Vicious like, that's easy. That's easy next round, you know, and then they lose to us. So, those are good times.
You go. Anyway, to go back to treats, though, I have to say, though, that's one... Listen, I know, again, people should by now have the expectations set when I talk about TSM. We all know I'm not going to be unbiased, but I'm going to give my real thoughts. I'm just obviously going to put a little bit of spice on there. You know, I'm going to go in the thesaurus and find the craziest adjective to burn them with. So, basically, the problem I have is this, right? I know for a fact, well, I can't say, actually, that's a ridiculous figure of speech because it's not a fact, it's hearsay. But from knowing loads of players that have been in TSM, right, I heard that even until last year, like, listen, Reginald, like, he can't stop himself. He still does, I've heard, go into the practice room and go into the game when they lose the games and they're doing badly. He still does that thing where he just busts in the door. He's like the fucking Kool-Aid man or something. He just busts in the door and then he starts just telling people what they're doing wrong and how they need to fix it, right? Now, the problem with that is, there's only some players who are going to respond well to that, right? And over the years, some of the ones who broke down, like, it wasn't just that, but that doesn't help, right? And so there's even been some big names people wouldn't know, did not appreciate that style, by the way. Especially because it's the owner. It's not even the other players calling out. It's just a guy who's like, what the fuck? What do you even know? Like, you're just the owner now. So there's the thing I wanted to say is, this makes me a bit worried that, like, that style needs to go, because I agree, mate. When I saw Treats get subbed out in the playoffs, everyone now goes like, oh, what a stupid move, because Biofrost basically only played fucking Rakan or whatever. But I can't blame them, actually, because Treats was like, he was having some real problems in those playoffs, and his champion pool had shrunk so small that everyone just wrote him off as a player. It was like, look, he's just not a good enough player. Like, he can't play the current best champions support. I have to say, when I look at him now, that makes me feel like the pressure on him must have just been too much. He was just buckling. Like, dude, he's been smurfing in some of these games. I thought he looked really good.
I mean, I don't think the style needs to go, but I understand your point. For me, when I see Reggie and when I know, I mean, obviously from experience at first hand, you know, I think what he's seeking and what is really, because I'm actually similar. I will bump heads with people in order to figure out who they are, and I think that's what he does. He doesn't flame you to flame you.
It's a test.
It's a test to actually like see whether or not you can take it, and if you can take it, you can take anything. You can go to playoffs and not care about like the pressure that's happening. You can face fans, not care about the pressure. I think the pressure that Reggie puts upon people makes sense given the context that TSM is in, because they are the most polarizing team. No matter, I mean, even though they have had bad years, like from season 8 to season 9, or season 7 too, to a certain extent, when they fell down a bit. But like, that's what he does, and I do see the value in it, but it has to be toned down for people that you kind of have to like go, you know, like step by step. You can't just be like just be the cool man, as you put it, and just like, oh yeah, just run into the wall and just flame everyone like equally. You have to really test the waters first and understand, hey, how much pressure can I bring to a person without him breaking to begin with? You know, like the whiplash kind of scenario, just a bit more toned down, where you go step by step by step, and at some point you're gonna have that new talent coming in that is actually gonna be able to be revolutionary. So I understand him, but yeah, like it has to be. it has to be kind of tailored to the people that you're working with to a certain extent too. Because if you want to break someone like, for example, Dyrus, that is a bit more sensitive and it used to be a bit more sensitive, well, that's going to really backfire, But like someone like me, or I guess I was a pretty good example.
I guess Björkson probably can take it, Yeah, there's a few
that just like bump heads back, and I think that's what he's seeking. That he's actually yearning for. That someone is going to be the same person that he used to be. Like it's a Dr. House, Whiplash. What is it, Fletcher? I guess like
Yes.
that kind of person that he's looking for. Someone is going to be not just bump heads back, and it's going to be the strongest person that he can find.
Basically, we need that the other doctor, the one who had that like white coat on all the time and was always talking about his wife. We need that guy to come along and help Dr. House get his shit together, because he's getting out of control when he's on his own. If you haven't seen the show, it's sad that I'm actually a boomer now for referencing fucking House MD. Like that was actually a straight fire show back in the day. Amazing.
Yeah, it was.
It was a banger. Still holds up. Don't know why I enjoy the main character. Just nothing like me. Right. Anyway, the sad thing is people always tell me it's just like me or whatever. I'm like, whatever. Yeah. I wish I was like that, mate. I'm probably not as funny as that. Right. So Arailla, what do you hear about Reginald? No, obviously not. Right. The question I have is, what do you think about treats this split?
Well, I think that he's really, really good, and we can see that he's a bit back on form because he used to be great when he was playing in Europe, and that's why he got picked up by TSM in the first place. And so, the TSM bubble and so on, of course, didn't suit him well. And I don't know, this register sounds just so toxic to me to build something on long term with so many young players and so on. I don't get this stuff. Even Whiplash, I wasn't convinced, to be honest. So
fair enough.
I don't know.
Yeah,
sure.
He really is hyper decisive and know the game well as a really obviously support analysis you have to be good at a high level, but I really think he really knows how and when to do these great engages, and will keep do these for sure. I don't see him just back away from those, and it was just a phase or some pop-off games. No, I think that's something you can count on from now on. And the Alistar, the Rail, even the Rakan, all these will keep being reviewed.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I will say on the Reginald thing, actually, I'll give a little bit of ground, which is I can actually personally understand it. I will say, you notice, except for shows, I do tend to work on my own, and even when I work with people, I flame the fuck out of everyone. But I just sort of I'm vaguely charismatic enough I can pretend it's just entertainment, even though I am lucky flaming everyone. But again, I get away with it. But I will say, because I worked recently on that Flashpoint project, obviously like CSGO, and I had to have a whole team under me and hire people. I have to say, when I had to hire people, mate, when people are fucking up things that you think are basic that they should be able to do, or even worse, things you could do, and so you're thinking, well, I could technically go and do this, but I hired you to do it, so why would I? I have to say, it is really hard to keep your temper in that scenario. I didn't wig out on him or anything, but one area I had to, basically, Monty just straight up told me, you're gonna have to change in this area was, if they did something wrong, obviously I would tell them, look, you did that wrong. You messed up the graphic, and also, why did you cut the camera when I was talking and making my points? Because obviously, I am just fucking upset. I'm just an egomaniac. I was get the camera on me. Look, I was talking. No, just joking, obviously. But obviously, I was making a point when I said it, right? When I said all this, he was like, yeah, but when you say that, you've got to also mix in there some compliments and stuff. And I was like, yeah, but they're just doing it. It's just okay though. And he was like, no, yeah, but you have to tell them those parts are okay and they're doing a good job. And I was like, yeah, but they're just. That's what you're supposed to do though. And what I realised later is I've become some sort of 1950s dad. I remember some guy from Russia who was a friend of mine once told me something like this, where he said that once he said something mental to his dad, Dad, you never told me you loved me. And he was like, I told you once. Why did you forget? And I was like,
oh God.
It's dude, it's not just that you're supposed to forget. You're supposed to keep saying it. Obviously, I'm not that bad, but I can sort of vaguely get it. I get the sort of premise. The problem there as well is that's if you focus too much on success, you are also going to lose people along the way in that sense. I once heard a brilliant way that fucking Bill Russell described it in the NBA, where he said, because obviously he's the guy, if people don't know, who has the most NBA championships from the 60s. Basically, he said when you have a teammate, you have to bring them along with you, put your arm around them and bring them, but you can't drag them or push them. It's you can't make the guy go. It's more you have to sort of persuade him this is the way to go, and then they come with you.
Yeah, I think that leadership style that Reggie, just talking about him, established works when you're directly involved with the team, like when you're really, really involved, because at that point, people can see like how much you actually work, right? When he was, for example, coaching me, I could obviously see that this guy's he's actually working more than me. What the fuck am I doing? Like, I have to follow this leadership, like he's doing more than me. I have to catch up. So this also works as a player, but there's a limit. And as you put it, right, like compliments here and there, but I think it's more about inspiring people to do more. You don't have to necessarily give compliments, but just be like, hey, like make them believe that they can be better than they actually are right now. And that would make them work harder already. So it's like, bring them along, make sure that they actually feel like they're worth something. And then like, have them come along, and I think that leadership style is something that works when, you're really, really involved and you're really there all the time. People can see your face and the work that you do every single day.
Right, one team that would obviously be fun to talk about, like we'll save G2. We're not just going to go straight into that. Like you got to save your dessert. You don't just have that before the fucking the carrots and stuff. It's going to taste like shit. So we'll save that part. I want to talk a bit about Rogue. Because I know people were like fairly hyped when Odoamne joined. I've always thought like the problem Odoamne has is this. It reminds me of Soaz. When he's at his worst, people flame him super hard. And then when he's at his best, people don't notice what he's doing. And then they just look at the other lanes and go, wow, the rest of the team's carrying the game. And I'm like, how many times has he done this? Like, that's his whole career. So it's why he reminds me of Soaz, like a modern day Soaz in that sense. So I had to say, I was hyped when I saw this guy join Rogue because I already thought, look at the pieces they had. They were obviously another team that like didn't really do it at Worlds, but you don't blame them. They were so young, they barely ever played. In fact, to even go to Worlds is an accomplishment. By the way, if you're listening to this like a Roman, mate, just to go to Worlds is an accomplishment. Like, you don't have to be amazing your first year. All that needs to be said is this, if you are European. Fucking Perks failed the first time when he went to Worlds. If that ain't enough, like, that guy's the greatest. Like, if he can fail, we can all fail. So, in my opinion, like, Rogue was already on the cusp. Like, you could see in regular season games, they could beat anyone. So you add Odoamne, like, this is a pretty interesting team. The only one downside I had, and this is just purely, my own bias from knowing the guy, is I did get a little bit worried when I saw they removed Vander, because I was like, that's the only, like, veteran presence you have. But I have to say, I've seen some games where the Trimby guy looks pretty good. I can sort of see what they're maybe seeing in him in that regard. So, right, where is Rogue for you, Amazing? Like, are they justified by their position on the table? Are they really like an elite team in LEC?
I mean, they must be second. Like, I just don't see any other team being. Okay, so overall, well, let's just go roll by roll. First of all, Odoamne, I think he's maybe second or third behind Wunder and Bwipo. I think that's where he positions himself. But he's going to be that stable presence in top lane where you're never going to have any issues with. This guy's going to be fine no matter what. You can put him in bad matchups, you can put him in good matchups. He's going to be there. So he's not like as counterpick reliant as someone like Bwipo, so it gives you more versatility. So, and then leadership presence, stable rock, you're always going to be fine. Inspired, again, top 2, top 3. I do think that he's performing better than Selfmade this split. He could actually be better than Junkos too. So he's either first, second actually at this point. Then Larson, I mean, again, like kind of stable, but he's really good. Just like he's like the European version of honestly Bjergsen to Power of Evil, that kind of like style where he's going to be able to play any control mage no matter what happens. And it's going to have some kind of pick ability, but he's always going to be fine. And then support and AD carry. Hansama, really defined play style. You can play around this and plan around this so easily. You know what he's going to do. Slow push waves, dive enemy tower, or like just have good wave control in general. Like, he's always going to be fine in lane. Trimby knows what to do. So I just don't see any downside for them across the board. There's no player on that team that I'm like, hey, this guy's fucking bad, or this guy's a weakness. For example, last year with Rogue, we had Finn, right, to a certain extent, was like not fucking bad, but he was like worse than the other players on the team, right? Yes. So he could pinpoint, be like, hey, if we put this guy in a bad matchup, he's going to be 20, 30 CS down, he's not going to be able to provide for the team. That weakness is gone. Then we are Fnatic right now, we have like, obviously we talked about Niski a bit, to a certain extent, we talked about Upset a bit, that I think are some weaknesses. You can point at these two and be like, hey, we can exploit them. I don't see that happening to Rogue, so who are we going to expose? No one on that team. So they're actually just like a mechanically worse version in terms of like versatility and everything that they can bring to the table to G2. So they're like just the second place team in Europe right now. And they will never beat G2 in the best of 5 because they're just too stable potentially. They don't have any pop-up players anymore. But that's it, like I think they're going to be second no matter what.
Key thing there, fans, is listen to the second part when he said a mechanically worse version of G2. So like that could still be really fucking amazing. To be fair, he's not saying that as a bird. Actually, that was just an assessment. Right, what do you think of Rogue overall, Arailla?
Yeah, pretty much the same, I guess. Top 2 for sure. I'm hyped for their rematch against G2 already because they were hungry to face them first time, and now that they're 0-1 against them, they will really try their best to make it matter. So yeah, really expecting this one. Also, I'm really convinced by Hansama with Split. Him coaching a bit Trimby, the way he sees the lane and the bot lane macro, and empowers him so he can roam around the map and so on. And this all worked so well so far. Yeah, so Trimby is really important to pick whatever champion you think would work at those games. Has a champion ocean already on these few best of ones, and Ansama myself is getting really consistently aggressive on any occasion he can find. So I think that's where you can find those pop-off moments that can carry a team, maybe even in the best of 5.
The disgusting thing about Hansama is just that he actually demands bans. Like you have to ban Kalista against him. Like in this meta, what the fuck? Like out of all the champions, you know, I mean, Kalista's not terrible, but she's also not great. You know, like you have to ban that against him, and if you are unlucky, he's gonna pop off with Draven. So this guy, in terms of pick ban value, is just insane. It's actually like, I mean, there's only maybe Rekkles in terms of AD carries that can provide the same value in terms of pick ban, where you have to ban a Senna or at least like value it, and then you have to think about the Kaiser, whatever it is too, and like even Zaya to a certain extent, even though he's not playing it right now. But that's like, you have to account for so many times just from the AD carry role, just because Hansama is that fucking good on those.
I'll actually give it up to Hansama, because if people don't know, he's one of those players I've always like sort of thought was a bit overrated in the past. But this is the key context now. Is my problem in the past was he wasn't like some EU Uzi who's going to be some monster AD carry. Like, first of all, in Misfits, people overrate that Misfits team so fucking much, because at Worlds everyone's like they almost beat SKT. As I always say, first of all, if you have to say it almost, like, first of all, sit down. They didn't beat them. So like, that's like, that's actually, like, come on, mate. Like, it didn't happen. So here's the problem I have with that, right? Is before that, they were a really up and down team. Like, they were all over the place as a squad. Obviously, after that, they broke that team up almost entirely. And that particular team, like, I thought he only got good by the time he got to Worlds there. He was obviously quite a young player. I think it was his rookie year, maybe. But he wasn't that experienced. He was just an okay AD carry. Then I looked who he had as players, right? In that team, he had Ignar. Listen, you don't have to tell Ignar how to play. He's just going to play how he plays, and then you better just do what you can around him. Then he had Mickey X, so it's like, mate, this is like laning on easy mode if I'm an AD carry that doesn't talk and just wants to play the game and farm CS. Like, they're just going to harass the fuck out of everyone or just go make plays on the map. Then he had Vanda, who's one of the most experienced, has played in every type of AD. Like, mate, these are basically... The one time he didn't have one of those people was Gorilla, where I'm assuming they probably had pretty bad communication issues. It was a mismatch of styles. It looked like a bot lane that didn't talk. So I thought, like, maybe he's just overrated, because he just seemed like above average when he was at his best. This split, though, what can you even say? Like, he's playing with a rookie. Like, this is someone who doesn't know the LEC level, definitely doesn't know how to play against teams like G2, etc. You don't get experience like that when you play in the LFLs, etc. Like, that level of league. So it has to be him. He has to be the guy doing it. And overall, he has to be one of the best ADCs in the league right now. You can't argue against it, really.
Yeah, I think his problem in the past was also that, like, his teams kind of relied too much on his style. So I think for Rogue, it's an option to play through him. It's an option. But for Misfits, for example, that Misfits was, if they didn't play through him, they would just lose the game. Like, if we remember correctly, in 2017, like, if they didn't play through him, they would lose the game. 2018, same thing, because Maxwell didn't provide like that much internal value in terms of like mechanics, and Senkuk's obviously in 2018. But then in 2019, obviously, or 2020, then rather, thinking about like that Rogue roster, and then in 2021, like, this guy's actually really just like, he becomes an option, and that makes him so much more valuable. If you don't have to play through him, and he's just one someone you have to account for, like, his value just goes up. And same for Rekkles. Like, I guess it's really smart thing where if you have to account for someone, but he's not like necessarily having to be the main option every single time, like, it's
OP. Yeah,
it's OP. Fuck yeah, that's what it is. Sure.
Right, okay. Another team we obviously have to talk about as well is Mad Lions, because I'll just be straight up.
You hate them?
Like, I thought this team was going to be garbage, mate. Like, I really did think in this lineup that it's like, wow, you guys, listen, everyone praised you last year justifiably, but I thought they fucked this one up, actually. Like, they've done, like, I thought, like, the problem with the top lane move was, like, listen, I don't claim to watch Turkish league, so I won't pretend I know loads about that, but it's like, it did look like dude, you didn't just recruit this guy because he literally beat you, right? Like that. Please tell me that's not the reason. Like, this isn't a fucking like a meme. Like, did Reddit make this team? Like, it's one of those ones where, like, you know, so, like, it's like the comment was too upvoted. It got golded and like gilded. So they were like, well, better bring him in. It's what the people want. But I can't lie, mate, they're really surprising me this split. I mean, look, they're above Fnatic. Like, this is no joke. So, come on, Arailla, start us off on this one. Like, what do you think of Mad Lions?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by Arailla. The guy actually is bringing a brand new range of picks with a Kane, with a Kindred, and so on, and really is confident in his picks and brings a lot of value to his team. Obviously, Humanoid is still kind of the rock, I'd say, in the middle of the map for them to rely on. Karzi and Kaiser were still functioning as well as in 2020 at Kaiser still a big monster, even on the non-usual sports. So that's always a concern to consider. But not a big fan of Armut as well, but he's functioning well in the team. So props to him. I still watched a lot of TCL actually, and
was he one of the best top laners there? The hesitation kind of says,
the thing is, it was above time in summer,
right?
Because he got to Worlds twice in a row, so that's something to account for.
Fair play.
Thing is, both years he also was in 2019. Rin was better than him. Who got to CLG afterwards?
Yes,
you know,
Ruin. Yes.
Yeah, and 2020. There was Hyrit as well in TCL.
Yes, obviously now in Misfits, yeah.
Yeah, and in my opinion, Armut was probably worse than them both, so I was not really hyped by the guy. So, well, I saw him in Worlds afterwards, crushing Orome.
Orome, yes.
Yeah, obviously not.
They're both Romanian, to be fair, so...
Yeah.
Easy mistake to make. Actually. Yeah. Yep. Both only allowed to play tanks, so...
So...
One out of choice.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not super fan of a player.
Do you think they're benefiting a lot from... I mean, I personally think they benefit a lot from being online, but do you also think that they benefit just from the current best of ones, and then they're going to be worse than a best of five system, or do you think they're going to be carrying their performance over? Because I see them dropping heavily when their versatility it's not paying off anymore, and I think that's the best of one advantage. We can like just change up drafts from one game to another, like very much, whereas like stale playoffs are stale meta, you know. So.
Could be, could be. Looking at their games right now.
20 jungle champions.
They've basically smashed all the bad teams and Fnatic. I'll just say that to be kind.
Yeah, they smashed Fnatic both times. So
fair play.
I guess. That's two already in the best of, but.
That's the sort of world we live in, where Bwipo can win against 369 and then lose against Armor. Like listen, what I said earlier about the ceiling in the basement, if that isn't a proof right there, I don't know what is. Like, come on, man. Really, Bwipo, really, G.
I mean, they definitely seem to like struggle when things get serious. I feel Mad Lions. I don't know how to put this, but like I saw this obviously last year at Worlds when they had to like kind of face the quarantine and then face obviously the World's opponents when the meta became stale. But it's more like I feel like they have such a for fun atmosphere that when things get really serious, it hurts them because they're not. It's kind of like the opposite issue of TSM. Actually, it's the opposite issue. That like they have too little pressure upon them, so they had too little, and when when the stakes are high, they choke because they don't have that pressure coming in from the upper management or from the coaches. At least that's how I feel like.
They seem to be in a really protected environment, so yeah, could be.
Sure. I will say one thing about this team, and listen, if you don't like it, just get out from your filing cabinet and put it in the enormous folder that's called Thorin's hot takes that might just be complete nonsense, but I believe it. So that, which by the way is the secret of being Thorin, in case you want to know. So here's my hot take, right? Because I actually was a mad fan of Humanoid the first time he came into LEC in season 9. Like when that trio came up, it was like Nemesis, Humanoid, Abadage. Like immediately you could see Abadage had some sort of problems in the actual matches. Nemesis was in Fnatic, so I already had like my seat set up and my popcorn and my Coke ready to flame the fuck out of him. Then he did me a favour, because the problem is he was actually pretty good to start with. Then, he started just doing terribly the next year. I was like, right, there we go. I was 1 year out. Okay, I had the clock slightly off on that one. But the problem is, Humanoid looked so good when he first came in. Obviously in that totally different team back then. They were like, I think they were called Splice still at the time. The one where they had like Vizicachi and Kobe and those guys. So I thought, this guy's, remember, EU was about having stud mid laners if you can. That guy looked every part the stud. Like I even used to say at the time, dude, Fnatic picked the wrong one. Like if they'd have picked Humanoid instead of Nemesis, imagine what they would have done. But I have to say, in the lineup that he's been in from last year to now, where he's with all the rookies and the players who don't have experience, I agree with you, Amazing. Like he's become just like a stable mid laner. Like it's like I feel like he knows like he has to be the presence who doesn't like take massive risks or doesn't play. But like I actually think he's underused in a way, mate. Like I actually think he's really skilled as a player. Like I'd love to see him on a team where he just goes fucking all out. Like I think he could be an even better player.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he's not quite as. I mean, this year is more. I feel like he's more passive than last year. I think even last year had some pop-off moments, but this year it feels like he's not. He's just existent, Like he's like someone that you're gonna be fine with no matter what. The same rockets we talked about, but it's like, imagine him last 2 years on a let loose team like Fnatic was at certain times, where he could just do whatever he wants to while being carried by other lanes potentially in that game. So that in terms of development would have potentially elevated him like to the likes of I'm not saying to the likes of Perkins Caps, but just below them like that, because you don't have to care about the results of what you're doing anymore, and you have other people to carry you if things go wrong. So that would have done him so greatly. So I'm actually wondering how good he would have been, or how good he would be right now if he had that ability to just like develop freely without having to carry in the world. And I think he would have been top 3. I mean, he's already top 3, but he's like he would have been way above where he is right now in terms of his individual ability.
By the way, because I have a Discord now filled with maniacs who like my shit, so you can imagine what that's like. And I have a meme channel where they make memes. Here's a meme I want you to make, right? You know that classic meme where it's that guy just like poking like a dead body with a stick or whatever? That has to be amazing. And then it's every single team in the LEC, and all he says to all of them is like, go on then, pop off. Go on, someone pop off. Like that's the amazing analysis lens for this episode. It's like, but does he pop off though? It's like,
but does he pop off though? Yeah, no, he doesn't.
Do you have any thoughts about Humanoid?
Not. I think this year maybe is more focused on helping Arailla develop, and that's why he's been more consistent himself.
I think so too. Yeah. So
yeah, he was already on the shot call duty last year, and it has extended to maybe a bit more monitoring this year for Arailla, and it's paying off. It reduced his playstyle a bit. But control mages are trendy right now, so it's fine to him.
That's actually such an interesting topic to just talk about. It's kind of touchy, like that the difference in terms of responsibility within a team really drastically changes your playstyle. That if you're someone that's supposed to be a shot caller, like suddenly you cannot like just go for the outplays 24/7, because if you take yourself out of the game, like what are you gonna do? Like we've seen this with High when he went 0-9 like a couple of times, like in season 4 and season 5 when he became worse as an individual. That like people don't respect you anymore if you're inting. It actually is that way. If you're suddenly inting every single game because you're trying to go for the individual outplays while taking the responsibility, people don't care about your shot calling anymore. So it's such a transition like to actually see from a player that like he's willing to do that, I guess, So I guess in terms of that, like I don't want to just call for pop-offs, but I also want to call out like the good stuff in terms of taking responsibility. So in that regard, I think it's actually admirable what he's doing for the team.
No, I think also like you can add to that as well. If you want people not to respect you, like if you go down in a game in mid lane, it's also gonna be fucking really hard to shot call. Like now you're under pressure as well. Even just CSing can be hard at that point in time. So like it's one of the reasons, in my opinion, I know we've got into this a million times in past episodes. I'll just briefly say, in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why I think Bjergsen's game degraded a bit. Like by the end of his career, especially when he kept having all these rookie junglers or people who were so inexperienced, like you're not going to pick fucking like, I mean, it's not in the meta, but I'm just as an example. You're going to pick like Fizz and just like be flashing under their tower, going for kills, are you? Because it's not solo queue. You're not on a team where you can do that. Like in a team like his, the one rule is like he always has to be even or ahead in CS. Like otherwise he has no agency in the game. So like I do worry about players who are put in that position because, like we say, listen, for this team it makes sense for the structure of the team, but you never really know like what's the limit of that player. Like he can't do like Bwipo style play where you just go to the absolute limit and do whatever you want. Like in this team, yeah, and also by the way, mad props to any mid laner that is a true shot caller. If you actually can play mid lane, CS well, play your champions, and win the team fights, and you can shot call other people or what you want people to do, mad props, because that is very, very, very hard. When I said I thought Bjergsen was that good a shot caller, I don't think any mid laner really should be the shot caller typically. Like, it's really hard.
No, he need additional, like, just force to actually be shot calling for you. Because, like, I mean, I remember this also with someone like Pekka, for example. Like, this guy could basically be the rock for the team and like take that Lulu mid lane, whatever, so we're in mid lane. But he was way better suited if like I took more responsibility, Mythic took more responsibility. And that happened for a lot of players. Like Bjergsen at the time too in season 4 when I played with him. And like you need to strike a balance. Like you want to play towards, like, obviously you want to allow players like to cannot be themselves, but you also have to make sure the shot calling is intact. You know, so like striking that balance is really fucking hard when it comes to team environments. So having 1 or 2 players that actually want to take it is actually really undervalued in today's times compared to how it used to be. Or was the other way around, where you're like, oh, we need shot callers, like everyone needs to talk, let's bring them in.
Yes.
Now it's like everyone needs to press buttons, like, oh, it's gonna talk. Well, we didn't think about that part, you know, like, so I guess we'll figure that out along the way because we all have good game instincts. It's like what people say, right? Like we have good game instinct, instincts from 5 different people can be very different in very various directions. So suddenly you have no combined shot calling force where it's like, okay, I'm going to take your intention, your instinct, and we're going to make it one. Now that's actually still necessary, but people really fucking undervalue that. And
sure.
It drives me crazy. And when I see like young players come in, rookies, and they don't know anything about shot calling, the only thing they know is like basically look at the screen, right click, and that's it. That actually happens more so than we care to admit.
Sure. I mean, would you echo that from the teams you worked with, Arailla?
Yeah, I guess. Not much to add on the topic.
Fair enough. I will say as well, when you say instincts in that like creepy way, so it's like a fucking nature job, that just makes me think of those like ants that, you know, like somehow know to like build a fucking bridge using themselves and like carry them across. Like, guys, what are you expecting here? Like, what instincts?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, I mean, I guess that's why I'm kind of like, I mean, to kind of go off topic, I guess, on a rant, it's like why I'm kind of happy for now, at least, to be like watching the scene from the outside, is that it's actually like we really undervalue certain things that are really, really intrinsic to the game and are really almost like, how to put this, like are the part that I talked about in terms of respect to the game. Because people think that the game is all about just pressing buttons, you know, having the best mechanics out there. But we've seen this with teams, for example, like if we remember season 8 Schalke, like before I came, they were 8th. When I came, they were 2nd. Like it's not like I'm saying that I did all of that, but I'm saying that like someone taking shotgunning responsibilities frees up other people, and someone taking that burden upon himself like allows other people to follow their instincts. And I think that's something that like a lot of roster buildings that we see nowadays does not recognize at all, where they're like, oh, we're just going to bring in 5 rookies and we're going to hope it works out. We're going to drive the costs down, and that's going to be our prerogative, you know. But we're not going to think about, hey, how we get these people to actually elevate their game and how we make these pieces fit together. Like there needs to be more thought into that. And I guess that's why, like, I mean, now I guess we could talk about Magic Felix if we think about it, you know, like.
By the way, just as a quick tangent, like I will just say, I actually did a video basically on a similar kind of topic to what you're talking about in the off season, where the premise was, it's like the difference between someone who, like, if you have sick mechanics and you lane well and you have a good champion pool in LEC, people will say you're one of the best at your role, but it's different to be one of the best at the game. And so I actually think that's the undervalued part, since everyone's just so crazy for rookies now, is that, like, listen, there are players who they might not even be close to their peak mechanically or even the best in the league, but like they just know how to play. Like if you want to talk about one of your old teams, that Expeke team in season 6, when like he wasn't even playing the game anymore and he just came back because it was an emergency.
Diamond 5.
He wasn't trying to be the best player. He didn't even imagine he was. He just picked champions he knew how to do something with in that specific game. He just picked it because he knew, right, at this point I can do something, or I can help a lane doing this. Like, that kind of experience is like, that's worth its weight in gold. You'll never see it on the scoreboard. It'll never look like amazing box score, but like players who play with you will be like, that guy's fucking amazing. He just knows what to do. You know?
That's why I guess, I mean, thinking about this, you know, like the public perception of Nuke Deck is so off. Like, I mean, because we can kind of lead into that Nukeduck will know what to do at all times, and it will not look flashy, but he will be able to tell everyone on the team what they can do and what they should do at every moment. So he's brilliant at the game, but he may just be slightly subpar at this point in time in terms of his individual lane mechanics or in terms of his individual lane dominance. But he will know what is going on in the game at any point. And that's like the benefit that I see, for example, someone like Nukeduck has over, like, one of the rookie talents in terms of like Felix, that Felix, at least from the outside, it seems like, and I guess you can talk more about it, is that this guy knows how to play Champions League, knows how to play most matchups probably, but he just does not quite know how to play the game at this very moment yet. Like in terms of like the grand scale of things.
I guess you could say that. And actually, it was a bit rough at the beginning, obviously, because we had to get Felix quite fast. It was all done in the span of a week or something before he arrived in Copenhagen. So we had to adapt really fast to this. And actually, the way Felix plays in the team was really helpful to it, because he was, since he had less his own ideas about where to be and why to be there and so on and so on, he was very much agreeing to join whatever else was proposed by the rest of the team. And the team may seem more playing as one when he's on board, because he's not imposing his own way to do plays. And so maybe the play we are opting for are worse than what we do with Nukeduck. But he's really fast at saying, okay, let's go, I'm with you on this one. And so it gives us a synergy that compensates a bit.
By the way, just as a quick aside, since you were referencing Nukeduck, I know everyone, like, this is another thing. It's just EU players in general amazing. Let's face it, it's not to do with like having to be a trash talker. If you're a top EU player, cause Reddit is mainly Americans, they're just waiting for you to fall off so they can see your garbage. Like, mate, Reddit's opinion on players like Soaz is so trash. Like, they were hating on this guy when he was the best. Like, it's unreal. So I know another one is Nukeduck, because they always just take, like, what they do basically is they take last year where he had his problems and they make it like that was his whole career. Like, mate, you go back before that, he's a fabulous player. Yeah, he wasn't the absolute peak in a region, the god mid laners, but he was always right around there. He was competitive, and let's be real, his career lasted like 7 or 8 good years.
Longevity.
That's a really long time, and I have to give him mad props, because I did an interview with him in like end of like 2015 or something, and I was like, well, you've played like 3 or 4 years, you think you're going to keep playing? And he was like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, I'm just going to keep playing for like as long as I can. And he wasn't lying. There's like 6 years later, he's still playing. Well, not still playing now, but he's trying to. So on the Felix angle, dude, this is where I'm getting really puzzled by these pickups, because I have a problem here. I'm going to do a whole video on this topic, but it's actually what I talked about with Arailla when I did an interview with him. My problem is this. I don't mind the idea that you want to get rookie talent. In fact, for teams like Astralis, SK, if you just look at where they're at in terms of the like hierarchy of the teams, in terms of who has the most money, who can get the biggest names, etc., it's appropriate some of these teams get rookies. Like that does make sense. But my problem is this. Don't use rookies like it was that Willy Wonka film, and then you're like those people who are only looking for the golden ticket, and when you don't find the golden ticket, you just throw the chocolate away. It's like, don't do that, because that's actually a really gross, sort of like super cynical way to go through. These are people, remember, and they're not all going to be developed in 1 split, 2 splits. So the part that I hate is where people, I think Felix fits in this crew. Obviously, people like Leader, all these names that we know fit into this mix, where what happens is, because they didn't instantly do what everyone wanted and instantly show they were like, this guy's humanoid and caps and fucking Larson and all these guys, they're just written off and people didn't want him. Like, I couldn't believe Felix couldn't get an LEC. Like, I know you only played like 1 game or whatever for Fnatic ages ago, but like, listen, it's impossible you could be that good in solo queue, that you could be that good at the National League level, that you can just look with your eyes and see this guy clearly has skills. Like, listen, I know certainly there was all that stuff, the baggage that was around him where people were claiming like, oh, he's weird or he doesn't talk or whatever. Like, even so, do you coaches just think you just sit there and watch them play and then applaud and get your fucking check? Do something about it. Put people around him who can talk. Try and figure out what it is that's stopping him from being. Because think about it, right? Here's the analogy. The analogy is this. It's that Willy Wonka scenario again. Everyone else thought there was no golden ticket in there. But if you actually work a bit and you turn the chocolate, maybe it's behind there. Maybe you have to just fucking work a bit. Because my point is, if you were one of the bottom teams and you get Magic Felix and he actually turns out to be really good, mate, he is going to go, he's going to be like the 5th best mid laner if it works out, or 4th. It's like, and I even think you look at his style. Look how many mages he plays. Mate, if he just gets his head together, that will easily slide into LEC. That's exactly the style we love in LEC.
I completely agree. Like, and that's been bugging me about the scene. Like, just that's why I've gotten kind of disillusioned by the scene. Like, it's honestly been like a really sinister development over the past 2 to 3 years with franchising, I suppose, coming in. And like, I've been really annoyed by it because like I see it from the outside. I know how I was as a player when I came in. I was an idiot. I was an idiot when I first came to LCS. I was an idiot when I came to TSM. It wasn't for Reggie, and like I guess like what he did for me, like I would have been that kind of player that would have maybe fizzled out after 1 or 2 years.
You have to understand, Amazing literally was going on every Lee Sin queue. It's just he was actually hitting those kicks back then. So it's all right. If you hit the kicks, it's okay, baby. We're all right with that. All right, Lee Sins and Threshes, you know the rule.
Also, good times. Get to like you see the screen without my glasses too. So.
And by the way, that's not even a joke. Like, y'all think we're just doing a boomer joke. Believe it or not, this is not a joke. Amazing was actually known as the best mechanical jungler. That is not a troll. I know by the end of his career, you all think he's just a fucking tank dog or whatever. Like, he actually was. He had really good mechanics. Back when, by the way, about 4 people could do an insec or whatever. Like, it was, listen, mechanics were different back then. Sure.
Yeah, they were definitely different. But it's like that thing that has changed in the scene. And I don't know how to get past that because I understand where it's coming from, and the understandings are obviously like no one wants to say this, but everyone knows it's mostly profit driven because if you can drive the price down continuously by getting new rookies in and like getting the next new talent and hopefully gonna get the golden ticket, well then you have made $1 million right there. Like it's $1 million if you get someone that is the golden ticket. But actually implementing development plans and actually like forcing people to improve and like helping them improve is something that like people don't care for. They hire 17 old people, have them play for them, and like move to another country for them, and then just like, oh, you're actually not as good as we thought, or we hoped you to be, so we're gonna throw you away. Like, okay, we played enough with you. Like it's Toy Story, right? Like, oh, I played enough with you, I'm gonna throw you away. And I don't know how that's gonna change unless people are seriously gonna fuck owners up if they do this. Honestly, like owners, coaches, management, whatever it is, like they have to speak out against that. And I've been relatively vocal about it, but like there needs to be a movement against that.
Sure.
So unless that changes, like we'll keep seeing players such as Magic Felix that is gonna like have a maybe I don't know how it's gonna be with Astralis. Obviously, you may know more, you may know less. I don't know, but like from the outside point of view, like if this guy is kicked like Split for someone else, like we'll have the same repetition. So please at least give someone a chance for a year or 2, ideally, and then make an evaluation afterwards. You cannot change up your plan every half year, no matter which organization you are. If you do that, you're fucking everyone up. You're not just fucking your team up, you're fucking the entire scene up, because then suddenly like that's a rolling movement. You're driving the price down, everyone else is driving the price down, and that's gonna keep going. That cycle continues, and you're gonna fuck a whole generation of players up if you keep doing that. And I don't think people understand how sinister this is.
And also, if people don't know, like just as a quick aside, like obviously the problem is if there was no franchising, then it doesn't matter what our opinion of Magic Felix is. If he's on a team that's in Challenger and he gets to the promotion match and he beats whoever the worst, it doesn't matter. We don't have to all agree that he's good. He's just in the LEC at that point. Like that's the cool thing. You can force you in. I know, like when I used to do my show with Veteran, he basically said that like Jizuki could have been in LEC like 1 or 2 years earlier, but apparently people didn't like his rep for some reason, and so he had to basically like do exactly that. He had to like just force his way in, basically. But if we'd have had the franchising, like he might never have gotten in, because maybe like how it is. It's not even just that you've misinformed. Like if sometimes you go to your player, like your jungler, what do you think of this player? And then you got flamed by the guy, or the guy into the game, and he's trash. Don't get him. Like people don't realize. I know it sounds mad when you say it like that, because you think of these teams being valued at hundreds of millions. But like, dude, there's some teams that make pickups based on stuff like that, crazy stuff like that.
It's. I mean, first of all, the first great fit is obviously perceived skill, right? Is this guy good? Is this guy bad? But then beyond that, you have different agendas. For example, like in the LEC, we see it right now. Like there's a completely different agenda, for example, between, let's say, the team of SK and the team of Excel, right? Excel hires based upon culture. Like SK seems to hire based upon perceived talent, and like perceived talent at the top in terms of rookie talent, that they can get, right? What is the best rookie talent we can get? And Excel is like, what is the best rookie talent we can get within like our system that we play in, right? So that alone, like that agenda that Excel, for example, has can eliminate like 90% of junglers or 90% of players just based upon that. And that can happen for every single team. So even if the perceived skill may already like filter some players, like a lot of players are never given the chance because of it. So it's like, it's such a weird conundrum to be in right now that franchising actually poses. And that's like probably another topic, but like someone like actually Felix getting a chance because Nukta retires or whatever he did, like it's a one in 1,000 chance these days. It's like, it's a lot lower than it used to be, where you could just force your way in. You're like, I'm a good player, I'm going to make to LEC. Like, Forgiven would have never made to LEC if it didn't qualify. No way. People,
exactly, yes.
Like, he's the best example of that. Like, people are like, I don't want to play with that idiot. He flamed me in solo queue and called me an idiot. Like, I don't want to do that. So, if he didn't qualify with us, he would have never made it.
Like, what were you going to say before, really? Because I know I sort of like you were about to jump in, I could tell.
Another point, I was a bit shocked by the community response when we took in players that were in LEC or EU LCS before and dropped off to EU Masters levels. And then we got them back into the league. And it felt like it was just, you got your shocked in the LEC. You were not the golden ticket. Well, too bad. You will never be a golden ticket again. No more chances,
Yes.
And that's so ridiculous because you don't even consider the fact that maybe they were not in the right environment. Maybe they were not ready. Maybe a ton of different reasons happened and it was not your year or whatever. And it was time maybe for you to go back to regional, national leagues. But just thinking that player can't keep growing and can't actually reach the real point where they're LEC ready, that was really something weird to me in the end.
Yeah.
By the way, I won't reference the player for the sake of politeness at this moment. That's fine. I can be polite when I want to be. Just to choose not to be if people don't. If people don't know, actually, there's a classic interview Monty did in like 2015 where someone asks him about working with me. And he says, the thing about Thorin is he can be very professional when he wants to be. He can be very unprofessional when he wants to be. It's probably the best way anyone's described me. But basically, I actually only realised this now. Right after Arailla here agreed to come on the show, I think about 5 minutes after she said she'd come on, I did actually do like a mad flame on one of the players from Astralis. Listen, she still turned up. That's all that matters. Like I did, all that matters is that what happens on Twitter stays on Twitter. That's my rule. No one else's rule, by the way. It's real life, it turns out. But I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm just going to keep doing my tweets.
Oh, it's a good rule. It's a good rule.
I wish it was real. Yeah,
it's just a good purpose. No, it's like, I mean, as you said, right? Like but it's also like we treat League of Legends. That's also another weird thing, that we treat veterans in League of Legends as if the game was linear in terms of its progress, right? Like, for example, CSGO is like, oh, you're going to be able to aim better, and at some point you reach perfection, right? That's the end goal, right? But in League of Legends, that perfection is never reached because you have the meta shifts that are going to establish like different periods in time. So like a player can be shit in season 9 or 10, but he can suddenly be brilliant in season 11 just because the champion pool changed or the meta changed for that very role, right? So
League has to be one of the games with like the highest like application of game knowledge that can actually be not even tied to mechanics, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. No,
dude, there's always players in the league. Like, listen, I'll even put my boy Vander in this category. Like, listen, he's not some mechanical monster anymore. Like when by the way, this shows how old we are. Like, he also was considered like a fucking thresh god or whatever when he came in the league. Like, he was coming in with mechanics. Like, that's not his shit now. He's just a support player now. But tell you what, he's so experienced. Like, who wouldn't want a guy like that on your team? He knows exactly what to do at all moments in the game. He's played with everyone.
Yeah, and he knows how to be in battle, like it's like he was in the trenches multiple times, so that's something we can rely on. So like, but that's exactly what it is. Like, people have to, like, and I say people, I just
LEC owners and
LEC owners,
managers,
and like they have to really realize this, that like it actually hurts the scene too to keep having this player turnover. Like if you keep cycling through players, and we've seen this in NA already, and it's kind of like influencing like the viewership declining to a certain extent. The same will happen in LEC at some point if no one can tie the faces of the players like to the league anymore. Like if it keeps changing, like why would I care about the teams? Like because I mean, Mad Lions is maybe a good example to a certain extent, like compared to Splicer, or like in terms of like, I guess in terms of European, fan base is maybe a bit smaller, like, but same for Excel, same for like these smaller teams that are kind of like not really that known within the league scene yet, like they actually have to rely on teams and faces to actually make a living, to actually make something like out of their teams, because then they get known to a certain extent, because they have faces that are tied to the teams. But if you keep changing those in favor of rookie talent, that's really going to hurt you in the long run, because no one's going to care about your team. It's just, we've seen this in football, we've seen this in ALCS, we've seen this in NBA right now too, where NBA has the same viewership decline to a certain extent, because it's the same turnover. It's almost the same turnover rate. Like, people can't associate faces to teams anymore, and we create a faceless league. It's really dangerous. It also devalues the human side of, and that's what Thorin said earlier, right? The human side of the players. It really devalues it.
I mean, for example, if you're already looking, like, think about us watching where we don't have the comms. We can all watch and flame a player, but, like, there's certain scenarios where you find out later that player was, like, the glue guy in the team, or, like, the guy who actually, like, picked people up, or maybe he even did have shot calling, just no one ever bothered mentioning it in an interview. And so you say, like, remove this guy, he's garbage. And then the second he leaves and they put in a better player as well, the team just collapses. Like, that's happened many times in history, So, yeah, that's the problem. Is, like, League of Legends is, like, especially out of all the esports, come on, the whole point of League of Legends, if people don't know, I know for everyone here it's like the main game or whatever, but, like, if you come from games like, I say, like CSGO, StarCraft and stuff, like, the whole point of League of Legends is it isn't just mechanics. It's a different type of game, In fact, I always said the whole thing to me about League of Legends that people underestimate is that the unique thing of League and Dota is the sheer information burden of how many matchups there are. Because if you have like 100 plus champions and all the combinations they can have, and then obviously Dota's even worse because sometimes the heroes can go to every position. Like that's part of what you're playing. Then it's not just about how good you are and your champion. Like who says you're even going to get your champion? And if you do. This is the thing that people underestimate. It's actually one of the cases I made for Leader coming in when everyone's like, his champion pool's stupid. It's like, mate, on his champions, he's fucking sick. Like, if he plays his champion, he knows all the matchups that he's going to play it against. So there's definitely different factors that always go, like, by the way. And part of it's because there's no scoreboard that these things can show up on. You have to just be in the team and know it, or you have to know that guy, So I guess in part, like, it's sort of our fault as well on these shows that we do just speculate like mad and we never quite know, but... I get pissed off when the people in the teams don't get it right. Like, come on, mate, you're literally there behind him. Like, if I could just go over and tap Nemesis on the shoulder and say, what the fuck are you doing there? Like, obviously I would, but I don't think he did appreciate it. Like, what the fuck, Thorin just a bit behind me? It's like, yeah, by the way. And then I'd skag him, obviously put him in a cupboard and then bring Featherman out. So.
Oh, God. Leave the boy alone.
Actually, you know what? He's even a player I'll take as an example of that. An extreme example of it. Because you know what? This is how mad 2021 is. We know it is the end of the world. Like, I'm going to now defend Nemesis.
I agree.
In no universe should Nemesis not be in the LEC. If he didn't get that, like, here's the thing. I know if he had, like, offers from maybe the worst team, maybe he didn't want to join, and maybe you don't want to join for, like, a lower side. I get all that, right? But, like, I don't even know what world we live in where the teams like Excel, these, like, why are you don't want Nemesis? Dude, like, beggars can't be choosers. Like, you need a player like Nemesis. Like, I'd say it for like half the teams in the league, mate. Like, he could definitely be. And by the way, the idea he couldn't play in LCS. Are you kidding me? Have you seen mid lane in LCS? This guy would be one of the best players in the league in LCS.
He would be top 5 in LCS for sure. Like,
for sure.
That's kind of like, I guess, the agendas and everything. Like, I understand why, for example, like, why would Excel not take him? Like, let's speculate the reason. Well, Youngbuck has worked with him before. He may not like him, right? That could be a reason.
Maybe.
He rubs people the wrong way, right? He's kind of like,
sure.
In terms of his forgiven, like, he's kind of similar to that, where he's a bit too negative. He's a bit too, edgy to a certain extent. So that may exclude him from another roster, But like, I do believe that, like, people have. Especially given like different positions that they have been put in, like, and that's what Arailla said earlier, is that like different situations that you put your player in, like, they're gonna react differently. So maybe the Fnatic situation was actually not the best situation for him. So maybe he could actually improve because he like being under the pressure of Rekkles and having to impress him to a certain extent, and being under the pressure of the organization may have not done him well. What if he was with a different organization? What if he was actually like in a smaller team? Could he be the main carry? Yeah, he could. I do think so. So suddenly you have a completely different mindset and shift of perspective for that very player. But you just have to allow it to happen once. And I do think that someone who goes towards, and that's the same thing that I was criticizing about Aroma. Like, and I was like really adamant about, like, myself when I was benched from Schalke in 08, right? After getting him to the finals in at that very split, that like, even if that player is dog shit, he knows more than you. Because he has that experience of playing at that world stage. So sorry if you think you're the greatest analyst or coach of all time, if you think that you can somehow outvalue someone's words experience or playoff experience, dude, you have no idea. Like it's a very different beast. It's a very different beast. You have so much like that 2 months at the end of the year make up more than it's probably more than the entire year actually.
I'll even give you a random way that I think it could have worked. Because as you say, first of all, if he's in any of these teams, he should be the fucking star. I mean, he's already the mid laner anyway, but you should play around him. I would even say this. I heard from some of the Fnatic lineups he played in, because as I tell these idiot fans, like, guess what? Obviously, Rekkles isn't my source. I think we can go ahead and guess that one. But I have people who are in those teams who like me, probably because guess what? The ones who don't like the other players just tell me all the shit. So basically, I heard that even some of his teammates didn't like him. Basically, because like I think actually Bwipo implied this on the Crackdown episode that's now never to be seen because it's memory holed into the fucking abyss or whatever. Thanks to that shit on Twitter. Yeah. So I guess Twitter is real life. Actually, it's ruining fucking shows and everything. No, basically the problem is this, right? I heard that he did have like 2 strong opinions about players who, let's be real, were just better than him. Like he just thought that like the jungler should play a certain way and like why are you picking that top champion in top lane? And if you're Bwipo, you're like, the fuck are you talking about? Just play your champion. Like, it's my champion. What? Like, which obviously everyone hates if you're a top player. But tell you what, put him on a team with rookies around him. Put him in the humanoid spot. Yeah. Because I'll even say this. Not only does he have the carry potential, but that might even be what gets him out of whatever issue he has with his attitude. Like, encourage him to be the leader. And what you say to him is, look, in your past teams, maybe they didn't play the way you wanted them to. These guys are all fresh. They're ready for you to tell them how to play. So tell them what you need them to do. Tell them what you need this jungler to do. Set you up in lane at this point in time, what the top player has to do at this point. Do that. Maybe that turns him into the player you want him to be. Yeah. And then the value, by the way, you've just like doubled his value instantly because he's not just a mid laner, is he?
Yeah, and then he sell it to LCS and make 1.5 million. I was like, what can you lose? It's that simple, right?
See, we've got the hook already here because we're so, listen, all the rest of it was good. We were discussing teams and all this. I'm probably just going to make the title like, in defense of Nemesis in the LEC, some mad quote like that. Listen, that's going to get all the clicks, mate. So we covered TSM. Like, I like the way we had a 20-minute TSM segment in an LEC show. Like, they were right all along, amazing. All the shows aren't just about TSM. Fuck, no. Really... No. Now, if we could just find a way to have a discussion about Froggen before the episode ends. No, obviously, like, speaking of which, where's Froggen in the LEC? No, I don't know.
He's a
I don't know.
Right?
We couldn't even consider him because he was still in A, so...
Right, that's the only good reason. Yes, there we go.
Of course.
So you would have made it.
She nailed it. There we go. Obviously, he was going to call her out hard, not for not knowing the king was available and ready to play mid lane.
Of course.
I really wonder what would happen to LEC and the LCS if we actually had like 15 to 20 teams. I think it would actually do both leagues so much good if we had an increase in teams in terms of like, I mean, they made the buy-in extremely high, so I guess that discourages a lot of teams from that investment. But if that buy-in wasn't like 10 million or whatever it was, like imagine having 20 teams right now, and then you would have the experience of Nemesis actually like that hypothetical. Yes. You would have maybe a team that is like, oh, we're gonna give Forgiven another chance, so let's see what happens, Like maybe we would have these epic like things again, but like nowadays people, because like there's such a limited amount of teams, like people have to be profit driven. Like it makes sense, like because there's scarcity in terms of the spots that you can give to other people. So like I would love to see that. I would love to see those hypothetical experiences played out on the real stage. It would be it would actually like make my heart glow up.
Oh, by the way, I will just say, I'll give the hottest take of all that no one has, which is most people who say stupidly on Reddit, like, oh, NA should just develop talent or whatever. It's like, what they really mean by that is like, develop talent that then is just way better than they would be and is as good as the other players anyway, and therefore they just have an American flag and are really good. It's like, you don't want to watch a player who sucks, who just comes in who's being developed. No one does. So it's kind of like a disingenuous point, but I'm actually going to share their position in this sense. I'm not thinking from the NA side though, amazing. Listen, if y'all want to talk about imports, is there too many or should we have all of them, etc.? Listen, coming from Europe, where basically we don't import Koreans, everyone's going, well, what about here? Like, I didn't stutter. Like, listen, I wasn't wrong on that one. That wasn't a great pickup. Shut up. Like, that wasn't great. Profit and fucking whoever. That guy, Blank, can fuck off as well. They weren't that good. Like, none of these players should be in the league. Like, the only one I thought actually played, like, with respect was Expect, because he just understood his role.
Trick.
And Trick early on was good, yeah. They're the only ones that really made it, in my opinion. So I look elsewhere. Like, this is what I want to do, Americans. I wish we could just really test out your project of developing NA tagline. I wish I could get in a time machine and go to the beginning of LCS, and there's just no imports allowed. So you know what? You don't get Jensen and all those. You don't get Bjergsen. You don't get any of these players. You just literally like 4 years into LCS, you're all cheering like, oh, I hope Pobelter can beat Jensen when he plays him at this Worlds. It's like, I hope that Pobelter, like Shifter, fucking Scara's probably still playing. Like, mate, that would be that league would be brutal. Like the idea you're gonna listen, you needed those imports. Those imports saved the LCS in many ways. Come on.
No, I definitely there was a necessity for imports. I agree.
Because by the way, here's the sick angle no one thinks of, because no one thinks from the LEC side, because that's how you know Reddit's just NA people. Because it's all like, bloody hell, NA's not good anymore. How does the whole world help us? It's like, well, why the fuck would I help you? You're shit. I want you to stay shit. If you come from Europe, here's the angle none of you have figured out. Right? Look at all the Koreans that have won Worlds for China. If you take everyone out whose imports out, tell you what, China, listen, they might have won with RNG in theory, right? That's the one that could have done it. Like, and there was past teams that were very good, but like China wouldn't have as many titles. So I tell you what, the second you send all the imports home, Korea and EU are the ones that are getting better, boys. We're just going up in value.
Korea's fucking insane then again. Like it's over.
Oh no, listen, I've always said that. How dare anyone say Korea fell off as the teams that win the Worlds just are Koreans? Dude, they said that after TheShy and Rookie just like smurfed on every lane and then won the chat. They were like, you know what, these Koreans have really fell off. Like, what are you talking about? Those are Koreans. What are you? And half the EU team, the NA teams that ever did anything had a Korean in them. Come on.
Yeah,
show some respect.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess as a team, the scene overall fell off, but like the individual players are still the greatest in the world.
Oh, of course, the monsters.
Yeah, the monsters, because they are the ones with the highest. I mean, I just don't know how they practice that efficiently, like because they're masters of, I guess, the long in terms of like practicing long, but also practicing efficient. Like in China, it's like they practice 16 hours, but it's partially inefficient aggression, hope for the best kind of play style. But like in Korea, they actually think about the game. They actually really make out, like, it's not like that LPL is terrible macro, but LCK or the Korean players in general are really more macro driven than LPL players are on average. So like they actually combine both the brains and the broads the most out of all the players in the world, you know, besides maybe potentially European players, you know, and Chinese players.
By the way, along those lines, Arailla, I actually want to ask you, because obviously your team has all these rookies in, like when you work with rookies, this must actually tie into this conversation. Like, yeah, they're picked up because, you know, they look good in ARLs or they have like high solo queue, or you look with your eye test like, oh, the mechanics are good, the champion pool. But obviously the big problem is, especially if they weren't in one of the like really well coached ERL teams, their actual understanding of macro is basically almost doesn't exist. You know, like they're going to have a very basic sense of it, or they're only going to know like maybe if they're ahead, what they do or something. Like, has that been a challenge? Like to see the team try and like develop a style and know like at different points in the game, if you paused it, like what do you do next?
Yeah, so I think one thing that helped is that we recruited players that had the same ideas about the game. So at least we were starting from something.
Oh, okay.
And then, and that's why we are obviously not high up in the LEC. We are actually working on step by step the way the games should go on our terms, the way we want to play and see the game. And so we really did it in a linear way in a sense. First few weeks, we really practiced the early game. Now we all agree on what it means, how we want to do it. And now onto the mid game, and obviously way larger topic. But step by step, we are really building up the way we want. In one word, we are building our playbook and are really getting all the steps we need to be on par with the other LEC teams. So that's why for us, Spring Split is really about getting these steps done one after another, so we can start then from there on the later stages.
If I could just ask a question, obviously, if you don't know or you don't answer it, it's up to you. How good is Zanzara's English? Like, is he good? Is he able to like make all the calls and stuff like that? What's he been like in that sense?
Really good. No issue there. He's been playing in Europe for a pretty good while now, so really no issue. I think maybe his accent is making people laugh with pay your taxes and everything on the LEC broadcast.
He's actually a troll, actually. I like it. Sure.
But no, really no problem at all on this aspect in the team.
Because to be fair, if you look at your team now, like not only because you've got White Knight and Magi Felix, but you look at our team, it's like 4 Nordic guys and then a Russian jungler. It's like, this is just EU West. It's like, could you all fuck off? You've got your own servers. EU Northwest, or Northeast, there you go. Russia, get the fuck out. Like, that's just playing a solo queue with like Masters or something, isn't it?
Ouch. No, but it's way more centered on the Astralis identity, at least. Yes.
Can you give us a quick listen without giving away obviously the gameplay? Give us a sense like what is the concept of how Astralis wants to play? How would you describe it?
I guess the thing that room for creativity around this playbook I mentioned. I guess like you have that set of things that are most efficient in a game that are play by play, step by step things that you should do in a game to make it won in the end. But what we want around this is allow for creativity, allow for throwing off plays that will in the end destabilize the opponent because they don't expect it this way and get us even bigger leads.
All right, by the way, let's just do the G2 conversation, then we'll wrap the show at that point in time. Because the other thing as well is, even though I saved them till last because they're fun to talk about, there's also not that much you can talk about them because it's like, they're the best and they're all the best and they win every time. It's like, come on, we're going to go somewhere serious. So I will say, I'm loving already that Rekkles is in G2. Ooh, shocking comment. No, because I told people, it's like Amazing said, the best thing about Rekkles is that he doesn't have to be the one who's played through all the time. And in fact, then he's just like mad OP. If he's like your second or third option, like you're probably the best team in Europe, like logically, like think about it. If anything, that's why I knew those Fnatic lineups the last 2 years weren't that good because the amount of times they had to just like this isn't working, fuck it, just revert to put everything in a Rekkles basket. And if he carries the game, he carries the game. So like that can't be like the style, obviously, especially in Europe where solo lane is a king. So one of the reasons I was loving when they made this lineup is I was like, this is when Wonder gets unleashed. Like now he isn't just troll picking games. He is just going to smurf, and mate, he is smurfing on the league. Like, he looks really good in some of these games he's in. So, like, I'm loving this G2. The problem is, like, it's sexy to see, like, the rogue storyline, but, like, it feels to me like this can't be, like, fifth gear in the car analogy for G2. Like, they're just sort of cruising at the moment, and they have games they look really good and they smurf, but, like, I do feel like it's going to be like a one-horse race. Like, I don't know if anyone with this format can beat this team. Come on.
No, I mean they can't. And so the only thing that I could see like is that the ceiling may not be as high as it was with Perks. And the reason why, I mean, it may sound really weird, but I do believe they will win EU by default. I think they will just win EU. No problems asked. No questions asked. But I wonder how their potential is at Worlds because of the difference between Rekkles and Perks. Because I do think that the problem solving that Perks brought to the table is on a higher level than Rekkles' problem solving. And what I mean by that is like in game, like you just touched on it, this playbook that you have, right? The playbook is basically the basis for your play, right? Like that's basically the very basic. You need to understand how to play the early game, you need to play mid game correctly, late game correctly, and that's kind of like the step by step process, right? That you have. I think the G2 is going to master it, and they're going to be perfectly efficient at it. You know, like even better so than they would be with Perks. And I think that's the variation that you talked about, Arailla, is that like the creativity on top is when that is going to fall flatter with Rekkles than it would fall with Perks. Because Perks is so unique in his way of thinking and analyzing the games that he understands the very next step to, hey, the expectations is this. The enemies are going to do that and that and that. So we're going to counter this with this and this and this in that very moment. And I think that's not going to quite be established for them to that very level with Rekkles than was going to be with Perks. So I think that's kind of, I guess, a spicy take to a certain extent. So they will look worse against Korean teams, but probably better in terms of raw aggression and playability against Chinese teams because you just hammer against one another, and I think they have better mechanics now than they had last year.
Also, I'm just going to say, this is just obviously a joke, innit? But like if Rekkles goes to Worlds and they get knocked out and he starts crying again, it's going to be really harsh watching his own team actually like meme on him. And then the social media accounts post all the like crying Jordan memes. Like, listen, man, I hope he's prepared for what it's like to be in G2 because it's all great now you winning. But like, dude, just look at Jankos. Like he wins every game and they troll him like he's shit or something. Like all of his teammates and the social media. I will say though, whoever came up with that idea, by the way, that the caps recap then has loads of episodes that don't even have caps. That's actually genius. Whoever thought that up, that is actually really clever because it just makes it funny. Like it's so stupid, the idea that it's called the caps recap without caps. Like
Oh, they're smurfing. Their social media team is smurfing, but it's like
Oh, they're smurfing, yeah.
Also, to jungle's due diligence, just like, I mean, I saw Kato talking about on Twitter that like this guy is the Go jungler in Europe.
Of course.
This guy is a lot better, and that's I guess the difference you talked about. Like he's maybe worse at his role now than he was like in season 6 when he was at his peak.
Yes.
I guess, but he's a lot better at the game. He understands like the rhythm. Like he lets the game come to him, and that's like again undervalued, and people don't understand this, how important it is that like he can just be operate in the flow of the offense of the team, like similar to how you have it in basketball, whatever it is. He can operate in the flow of G2, but he can pop off when he needs to, when he actually prepares for a certain matchup the right way. And we've seen this in playoffs, that like sometimes he just understands the perfect enemy so well that he actually like just like anticipates plays, makes plays, and the game is just over. I think that's like, if he has a specific opponent to prepare for, he's going to do that, and he's going to do that come playoff time again. So I would never worry about him, even if he misses 20 spheres on Italy, because come playoff time, he's going to turn up, and that's going to happen. So it's such a different thing that like people don't understand. Like playing the game and playing a role, I can look good at my role in solo queue by just pressing, like by just fighting the enemy jungle 24/7. But is it going to win me games? Potentially not. And I think he understands how to win games, and more so than he understands winning his matchup individually, because he doesn't need to anymore.
And by the way, don't forget the 200 IQ move everyone's forgetting. As long as you win the game, he took the Nidalee away from the other jungler. I don't want to play versus that shit. You just suck on it and miss all the space. Like, I don't want to fight. What if he's good? That'll be a nightmare. Yeah, it's the last thing we want.
It's a Talia Nidalee treatment. Just put hope that your jungler is slightly less worse than the enemy jungler on it. That's how you do it.
This video was kindly supported by Lager15, Pronogo, Andrew, Animosity, ErikHillestad, Andreas Kroknes, Jensen Goh, Hades, Zoomba, Zyrathenia, Dean Tanglis, Tobias Bernasconi, Alexander Rao, and as always, a special thanks goes out to my boy Jerky's Minion. Do you want to ask some sort of a topic or suggest the guest for some upcoming content I have? Do you want to know something in my monthly video AMA? Do you want teasers, see who the next guests are for my content? Or maybe you want to take part in one of those lengthy audio discussions with me? Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skullluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.